Hello and welcome to SW6 Essential. As you can tell by the title, it's Can Fulham Stay Up today? That's the discussion. And we are very happy. Spirits are high because Fulham have won. We beat West Bromwich Albion. I'm joined, of course, by Joe Sanderson. Joe, Monday night, 2-0 win. Didn't get all the headlines because, of course, Leicester played Leeds. And, of course, Leeds lost 4-1. Got so much... respect. Oh, they played really well. No, they didn't. They lost 4-1 to Leicester. But Fulham won 2-0 in the early kickoff. How do you feel?
Yeah, buzzing. First win of the season, sort of made even better by the amount that we've had to take. It sort of built up, and then the big game that we had to win, we won. We don't have to make any excuses. It's done, and we played really well, and we really deserved it. And it was just more relief than anything for me after the game to look at the table. I know it's early. I don't really care that it's 7 games in. We're out of the relegation zone. And psychologically, that's massive considering the bad start we made to still not be in the relegation zone, I think is brilliant. And I think it shows that, I'm sure we'll come on to this, but the league is very unpredictable this year. And it sort of means that there's a few teams at the bottom that have sort of been left adrift. Everyone at the top sort of taking points off each other. And then there's almost a mini league growing at the bottom, which might stay for the rest of the season. But yeah, I was massively relieved with the win, really pleased with the performance and the manner that we won the game in, because it was a convincing 2-0 win. They never really looked like scoring other than the Grant chance where we made a mistake in midfield, which is rare because we were very good at midfield. And also the sort of freak cross that hit the bar in the first couple of minutes. But yeah, overriding relief.
Mate, honestly, I'm so pleased. I think the adrenaline is still probably pumping through my veins at the moment.
Can you imagine if we lost, what this video would be like right now? There'd be tears filling up the screen.
It'd just be like so depressing. But we haven't lost. By the way, if you want some more instant reaction from the West Brom game, go and watch the full time, which is still up on YouTube. It went live, of course, after the game. And if you want some more analysis on the game, then, of course, listen to the podcast, which came out Monday evening. We normally talk about the games, but I think what we're going to do from now on is pick a topic around the game and just discuss it, because you don't want to be overlapping the great work on the podcast, the great work on the full time. I think I'm going to be on full time after the West Ham game. I think that's not confirmed, but happy days. We'll just touch on it quickly because Ola Anya scored a fantastic goal. Bobby Reed scored a fantastic goal. Apart from them hitting the crossbar in the first 3 or 4 minutes, and then that chance you say with Carl Grant, there wasn't much to get worried about for West Brom. I'm very, very, very pleased that we were out of the relegation zone. The whole Jamie Carragher thing still lives rent free in my head, that Fulham are guaranteed to go down. I'm not too quite sure, and this is what we're going to get onto now. Joe, 5 teams you'd have to say that are in the relegation battle at the moment, including ourselves, which is fine. Brighton, Burnley, Sheffield United, and West Bromwich Albion. Will there be more teams added into that 5? And who would that be?
Yeah, it's a weird one. So obviously it's very early in the season, and I was looking yesterday. So we're recording this on Wednesday. So I was looking on Tuesday, the day after the game, and I was looking at last season. I was thinking, I wonder how the 3 teams that went down last season, so Bournemouth, Norwich, and Watford, were doing at this stage. And Bournemouth were in the top half of the table, possibly 11th, just under. And they'd had a really good start to the season. I think they'd just beaten Man United. But even about 10, 11 games in, they were in the mid-table, very comfortable, no danger. And it's always the case. Everyone will always look at the start of the season, obviously. Watford started very poorly last season and went down, as an example. It took them ages to get their first win, which was eventually against Norwich, who also went down. So there's always a team that is sucked in. Whether they go down or not is another question, but there will always be someone that drops in. You have to remember at this stage, when you're looking at teams that are comfortable in mid-table, we're about 3 or 4 points off them. We're only 3 points behind Manchester United. I appreciate they've got a game in hand.
Yeah. And Burnley have a game in hand as well.
And Burnley do have a game in hand as well, yeah. So yeah, at the moment it's a 5-team mini league at the bottom that's sort of slightly separated from everyone else. You'd have to say out of those teams, Brighton are probably the best team in those 5. And then you've got us and West Brom, obviously the newly promoted teams. You've got Burnley, who started very poorly in 2018-19 when we went down, managed to turn it around. And you've got Sheffield United, who they're suffering second season syndrome. And I've got to quickly pull up on this because we're trying to look at the teams in general. And I didn't like Wilder's comments at the weekend after the Man City game, where he was basically saying, how are we expected to compete with these teams? And saying, they spend all this money, So you've got Sander Berge in midfield, who was a club record signing. You've got Ryan Brewster up front that was about 25 million. I think you can compete quite well against these teams, actually.
I think that's a bit irrational from Wilder, because if you're saying how can we compete with these teams, you're only saying that because you've played Liverpool and Man City in the last 2 games and lost against both. You wouldn't
very narrowly as well. They did take them all the way.
Exactly. 1-0 and 2-1 losses. You wouldn't be saying that last season when you were sitting nice and merrily in 7th and 8th in the Premier League. Just because it's not going your way so far this season and you're on 1 point. Is it 1? Yeah, 1 point from 7 games. I wouldn't throw your toys out the pram. But anyway, that's Sheffield United. And if they want to have that kind of mentality, they can have that kind of mentality. Right now, it's every man for themselves, especially in the bottom 5. So we'll worry about Fulham's issues. One thing I will say is I think Brighton are in a bit of a false position. I think they played quite well in the majority of their games. The draw to West Brom, they probably should have won. I mean, they just kind of dropped off, and West Brom put on the pressure and got the goal with Carlon Grant. Morpay was out because of his ego, which was a bit odd. I mean, Graham Potter, I think, is one of the most sensible managers in the Premier League. And, if he drops the player because of that, there must be something wrong. Must be a serious issue. They dominated Manchester United and didn't come away with any points in the most bizarre game of football you'll probably see this season. Well, probably not, actually. There's been plenty of bizarre games. I was going to say they had a flurry of chances against the Manchester United team, who, like you say, we're only 3 points behind. I know they've got a game in hand against Burnley. But I wouldn't say that they're going to be down there at the end of the season. I mean, as funny as it would be, it's just not going to happen. They have too much quality in the squad. So, Joe, Burnley at the weekend, they lost to Spurs 1-0 narrowly. They then lost to Chelsea by 3-0, which is a pretty damning result. I think Chelsea were pretty good value for their win. And before I come on to the next question to ask you is that we must say that every result that could have gone our way in the Premier League this weekend went our way. We were begging for a defeat for Sheffield United the early kickoff, and they lost. And then Burnley, we wanted them to lose against Chelsea. They lost. And then Brighton on Sunday night, they were 1-1 with a very weird goal that probably should not have counted. There was definitely a foul in the build-up.
It definitely shouldn't have counted, by the way, that goal.
No.
Absolutely. And it's the same referee who refereed our game against Palace, who basically needed to go to the VAR board and then almost gave the red card to Abubakar Kamara just because he felt he had to rather than he thought he did. A bit of a side note that, but yeah.
So Bale went on to win the game. Happy days. So that meant that all the pressure was on this game, Fulham v West Brom, and whoever would win that would be outside the relegation zone and laughing basically because everyone's dropped points, and it was us who got the points. So Joe, let's talk about Burnley. Are you thinking that they could be a real relegation candidate? I mean, this is a team who have been quite comfortable in the Premier League for the last few years. Sean Dyche knows how to get a tune out of these players. They beat us last time we played them 2-1 without having a shot on target. But they've got 1 point from 7 games, and they're struggling. And forgive me, I don't actually know their next game. I can't quite remember. I'm sure you might know.
Oh yes, it is. It's quite a big one actually. It's Brighton versus Burnley on Friday night. So a game that involves 2 teams that we've just spoken about in this mini league. Burnley so far have looked toothless up front, to be honest. And I think that eventually Chris Wood and Barnes will come good and start smashing in the goals. But one thing they've always relied on is being very solid at the back. And I know they're missing Ben Mee at the moment. They've had to play Kevin Long there at times instead, next to Tarkowski, who we all thought was possibly going to leave. But they haven't been solid so far this season. They've looked shaky. They conceded, for Burnley standards, quite a few goals. When I was watching I'm sure you were as well, the Burnley Spurs game last week, I was almost thinking, okay, this is the Burnley I remember, very hard to beat. They had a header cleared off the line at one end and Spurs went up the other end. And I thought, okay, you know what? They're probably going to eventually start getting some results. But then you see them against Chelsea and they were pretty terrible. They had maybe one chance of note. And this is a Chelsea team that have struggled defensively a lot this season. And you sort of think, obviously there are worse teams defensively than Chelsea, but to not cause them any problems is a pretty damning indictment of their attack. So Burnley's a weird one because I do feel that the results will improve because I do think that Dyche is a good manager and knows how to get the most out of a group of players that on paper you look at and is one of the weaker teams in the league, but consistently outperforms that. But I don't think this is a flash in the pan. I think that they've deserved the losses they've got this season so far. They failed to beat West Brom away from home, what was a big game, and now they've got Brighton up next, which is a massive game for them.
It's huge. Who's at home there? Is it Burnley?
I think it's Brighton.
Brighton, yeah, that makes sense. Burnley have had 2 home games in a row. A huge game. Again, they're playing before us, so we will know what to do when it comes to our game on Saturday night. We've talked about most of the teams, but we haven't really talked about Fulham. Have we got the capability of staying up, Joe? Have we got, after Monday's performance, where you've got to say that Tom Cairney, we have to talk about Tom Cairney. Like, he was so good, so dominant, so refreshing to see him just pick up balls and just like play, like dribble wide just so he gets a bit of space. And he just battled hard and won every ball he could. And Guisa, yes, he made a couple of mistakes, but overall, I mean, that little Lacroquette he did in the second half to gain a bit of space in the box was quite beautiful. And then you've got people like Bobby Reid coming up with a goal, Mitrovic with 2 assists, Anderson with a fantastic debut, Adrabayo solid again. It's all good. It's all good at the moment. I know it's only been 1 game. We go to West Ham on Saturday. That's going to be very, very difficult. We're under no illusions, but we have to enjoy the highs because there might not be many this season, but hopefully there'll be a bit more than I expect. Joe, can we survive? Can we beat the drop?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely have the capabilities of doing so because I think our team on paper is actually very, very good. I think in certain positions we lack the depth. I still think we're lacking a little bit going forward, but it didn't look like that against West Brom for the first time this season. I thought we were very creative, could have scored more, probably should have scored a third at least with that Cairney chip and then Bobby Reid, which, by the way, if that's a Liverpool attacker hitting into the West Brom defender, I think that's a penalty and probably sent off and Liverpool go on. But, you know... yeah, we've definitely got a good squad that on paper you don't look at and think relegation fodder. The problem that we've got is that confidence until the West Brom game is clearly quite low. We know what happened last time. We are still shaky at the back. We've had a really good performance and hopefully we can build on it. But yeah, I mean, that midfield performance, as you were saying, is one of the best midfield performances I can remember from a Fulham team. Lamina in the first half, superb. Reid came on, did just as good a job. And Guisa and Cairney in particular, the amount of times they sort of muscled and dribbled their way through the press and made us attack and were also so solid in front of our defence was just brilliant to see. And that's the standard we need to expect. Because if we play like we did against West Brom every week, we're going to pick up points. It reminded me slightly as an improved version of the second half we saw against Sheffield United, where the midfield basically just took control of the game after we struggled in the first half. And I think that that's one thing we do have that is better than other teams around us, is the quality in our midfield to take games to other teams. When we can actually unleash that potential, I think we can pick up many points because you think of Sheffield United and Sander Berge aside, their midfield, it doesn't quite have the quality. It's got good players, but I think that we're quite lucky in that we've got some star quality in Anguissa and a player that should not be in a relegation battle.
Yeah.
Tom Cairney's been in great form. Lamina's played in the Champions League before. Harrison Reed's in good form. And it's just one of those things where I think we have to show our quality now and show that the team we've got on paper, I think, is a Premier League team, the one that started against West Brom. And you factor in that then we've got Kenny Tete that's out injured at the moment, is in Champions League playing right back. I think we've got to stop feeling sorry for ourselves and being like, oh, you know, it's hard for a newly promoted team. The team we've got is good enough to stay up.
Yeah.
And we've got this West Ham game, get that out of the way, and then we've got another international break. The back four should be fit to play together, maybe apart from Tete. Drill them and drill them and drill them again. Got a Champions League quality goalkeeper in goal who's finally kept his first clean sheet. Didn't have much to do on Monday night. And then we got a good midfield. And going forward, we can score goals. I still think we're lacking a bit of quality. And that's the one area I think that we lacked in investing in the transfer window. But Lookman looks so bright. Mitrovic looks hungry to redeem himself and did redeem himself, arguably, after that Sheffield United game. And then on the other side, we've got Reed, who so far, many people, including me, have said he's probably not going to make the step up. He's our joint top scorer, and he scored 2 goals, and he should have scored a third as well. And all I'm going to say is that's as many goals as Aubameyang. So,
yeah, I mean that is true. What I say about Mitrovic is, you know, he didn't score on Monday night, but he certainly assisted. And what he did so cleverly was that when he held up the ball, he was attracting both their centre backs, which created that space just outside the box where we were getting so much space throughout the whole game. That's where Tom Cairney could thrive. It's where Ola Aina, it's where the second goal comes from, because of that space for Aina. And he just thought, oh, I'm just going to hit this. And what a rip it was. I absolutely screamed. But let's move on. So we're pretty confident that if we keep everyone fit and we play the way we've been playing, and what was great to see on Monday night is we were so much quicker in transition, so much quicker in possession. Finally, it's like someone after like 60 games of Parker being well gone. Do you know what you probably need to do? You probably need to play a little bit quicker in the Championship. Like, I remember the Birmingham game. It was just so slow, and we ended up winning the game. But that's great to see. There's great signs of improvement over a couple of weeks, which is fantastic. We go to West Ham now, who are without Antonio. They play this 4-5-1 formation. A lot of West Ham fans seem to feel like they're going to change the formation according to this game. Would you take a point, or are you like, we need to start winning games, we need to start getting up the table?
I'd take a point because I'm still always of the belief that if you win your home games, well, as many as possible, and draw as many as possible of your away games, obviously with a few wins along the way, you should be okay. We've been better away from home so far. And this, I don't want what we just said before to sound fickle, as in we've won a game and now we're certain we're going to stay up. We're not. But even before the West Brom game, we've known the potential is there, and we've almost just needed to unleash it. We were unlucky against Wolves. We were unlucky not to win against Sheffield United. And Palace was just a very, very strange game, very weird performance. If you take the first 3 games that we played this season out of the equation, the Leeds game, the Arsenal game, the Villa game, the last 4 games, I don't think are relegation fodder results. Taken Wolves all the way, taken Palace all the way, on another day beaten Sheffield United and beaten West Brom. And I think that if we win the games that are in that mini league that we said about and just pick up as many points as we can elsewhere, we'll be okay. That being said, obviously, I think we should go into every game trying to win, especially this West Ham game, because as hard as it's going to be, they're in great form. The games that are coming after that are harder in terms of having City and Liverpool and in-form Leicester away from home. Everton, who obviously were a bit of a bogey side for them at the Cottage, but they've had a great start to the season. So I would take a point. I think we should go for the win. But it would be nice to pick up something before the international break to build on, because one thing we haven't said about is Bilic is under a lot of pressure at West Brom now. And obviously, I find it harsh to wish ill on any other teams. But he's under pressure, and they've got Spurs and Man U next as their next two before and after the international break. So you never know; they could pull a shock result out of the bag. Would it even be a shock against United at this stage? I'm not sure, but Spurs it definitely would. But that could already be, according to John Percy, who's a very reliable journalist, a managerial casualty early in the season if results don't turn around soon. And then you think, well, I mean, is that quite similar to us in 2018-19, an early change? The style of play isn't working and the step up, and it's all very interesting. And this is why I wanted to talk about the relegation battle today, because the pundits like to say that it was very set in stone early on. Fulham and West Brom are gone. Sheffield United and Burnley will be all right, and then someone will drop down. And that's not the case. Obviously, it could turn out that way, but we're 7 games in, and anything can still happen. The most important thing is that we're beating the teams around us.
31 games to go. What my thinking is, if we do end up beating West Ham, which I think is possible, a lot of people, I would think of West Ham away as quite a daunting away day, but they're not that. I mean, they've been very well this season, but there's been plenty of times where they've been completely found out at home, played off the park at home, countered, and it seems like it's quite easy to counter them on that very big, expansive pitch, which I think will suit us. If we do pick up a win and we're on 7 points, and all the bottom 3 lose, that's suddenly 6 points between them, and then suddenly everyone's like, they are cut adrift. They're still on 1 point, and we've played 8 games. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen the weekend, but that's my thinking. Lockdown is tomorrow. Yes, disappointing. Can't go to games. That Spurs away game just after Christmas, I was really eyeing up as maybe a game we could possibly go to, but it's on Amazon Prime. That's been confirmed earlier on. It's tough. We can't go to games. It could be a case where the next game we can go to, we're in the second tier of English football. It could be. We obviously don't want that to happen. How are you going to get through this lockdown with Fulham? How are you going to try and keep morale up? Obviously, it's going to be a very difficult time for everyone. Again, it's only a month apparently, but of course, this could go on for indefinitely towards Christmas, which was tough. It's a tough time.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess we're going to pass the time by making more of these videos. We're just mates. We just do them for fun, and hopefully, people find listening to our views interesting. Don't have to agree with them. Feel free to challenge us in the comments. I don't think our opinions are.
What I have been told that I am allowed another person on here. So if anyone does want to come on and give you, please just my DMs are open. Just whack a text and say, look, let's talk about this. Stuff like let's get you on.
Yeah, and we're going to have some interesting debates about different topics. Today's a more general, can we stay up? But it's probably the biggest topic of the season. But yeah, I mean, lockdown's going to be a tough time for everyone. Hopefully they'll scrap the pay-per-view, which I think they should, considering that we're all going to be stuck indoors. I don't think people should be having to pay extra to be entertained by something that earlier on in the season was free with your, or just a part of your standard packages for Sky and BT when all the games were live and at different times. Morale's certainly higher after that win. I don't really want to think of what it would have been like if we were on 1 point, and by that stage, I mean, I'm thinking we would have been on 1, Sheffield United and Burnley are on 1, and then West Brom would have been on 6. So we'd have been 5 points off safety. That's just horrible to think, and it's amazing what 1 win can do to confidence. But yeah, I mean, at least this time during this lockdown, which will be harder because it's in the winter, and it's a lot darker, but at least this time there isn't a big gap without football, and we have something to occupy us during the weekends and midweek.
Well, every day, especially for the next 2 or 3 weeks, there is football on. There's a Monday night game, there's Champions League, Tuesday, Wednesday, Europa League, Thursday, and then the Premier League, Football League, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Well, I said Monday already, but so there is plenty to occupy you in the evenings. It's how you fill your days. Obviously, we're always going to be here to try and bring some light, chat Fulham, whether it's a win, draw, or loss. But we've been whacking on for 25 minutes now, so I think we'll probably call it a day. Lockdown's going to be tough, but if Van Guisa's playing at the base of the field, it's not all bad. Or is he playing at the base so he could play the box to box and Harrison Reed sits or Lamina sits, however you want to do it. We also need to talk about how the fact that Ruben Loftus-Cheek didn't play, and that's fine by me. Like, Kearney was superb. We didn't feel like we needed him. I don't appreciate the Chelsea fans going in the comments, you're not playing your best player. Well, he's clearly not our best player because he's not on the pitch. And you have treated him very badly, like any other loan player that you've had, sending him out on loan. The terrible loan system. So Chelsea, shut up, man. Anyway, we will finish there. Joe Sansom, let's have your prediction for Saturday, 8 p.m. kickoff on PPV.
Okay, I'll go for a 1-1 draw. I think it's going to be a very hard game, even without Antonio. But I'm optimistic after what I saw on Monday that we can go there and come away with a result.
I'm going to go, brace yourselves for an Ademola Lookman brace and a 2-1 win for Fulham. Where we're clinging on, but we do it. Which would be great. I have a very, very good friend who's a West Ham fan, and he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if you beat us. So he doesn't really know how to feel about it. I would take a crumb of comfort from that. This has been SW6 Essential. Today we've talked about, can Fulham stay up? Who's going to stay up? And I'm sure next week we'll have a fantastic topic for everyone as well. That is it. Saturday night, big game. Come on, Fulham. Thanks very much, Joe, for being here.
No worries. Thanks for having me on.
We'll see you next week. Remember to listen to the podcast on Thursday, and the preview's coming out soon. Watch the game, enjoy the game. There'll be a full-time live and then a podcast, and then we go again with SW6 Essential. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share with all your friends, and come on, Fulham.